Hollywood star Brad Pitt storms off. Late show after heated exchange with Colbert. Tensions erupted when the host brought up sensitive family matters, leading to an explosive confrontation that has everyone talking. Last night's episode of The Late Show became the talk of the entertainment world when what should have been a routine celebrity interview turned into a shocking confrontation. Brad Pitt, who was there to promote his latest film, found himself in an unexpected battle of words with host Stephen Colbert that ended with security escorting the star off stage. The show started normally enough. The studio audience cheered as Brad walked onto the set, flashing his famous smile and waving to his fans. He looked relaxed in his casual blazer and jeans as he took his seat across from Colbert. The first few minutes were filled with the usual small talk about Brad's new movie, with clips playing on the screen behind them. Viewers at home probably thought they were in for the standard friendly chat that these late-night shows are known for. "So, Brad, the action sequences in this film are incredible," Colbert said, leaning forward in his chair. "You did some of your own stunts, right?" Brad nodded, his expression brightening as he talked about the film. "Yeah, I still like to get in there when I can. The director wanted authenticity, and at this point in my career, I'm looking for challenges that push me out of my comfort zone." The conversation flowed naturally for about 5 minutes before Colbert's tone suddenly shifted. He shuffled some cards on his desk and cleared his throat. The camera caught Brad's slight frown as he noticed the change in atmosphere. "Speaking of challenges," Colbert said, his voice taking on an edge that regular viewers would recognize as trouble brewing, "I want to talk about something that's been making the rounds in the news lately." Brad shifted in his seat. "Sure, what's up?" Colbert reached under his desk and pulled out what appeared to be a tabloid magazine with Brad's face on the cover. The headline read, "Absent Father? Brad's Kids Speak Out." The audience gasped, and an uncomfortable silence fell over the studio. "Have you seen this?" Colbert asked, holding up the magazine so the cameras could get a clear shot. Brad's expression hardened instantly. "No, and I don't need to. Those stories are garbage, Stephen. You know that." But Colbert didn't back down. He flipped through the pages. "Well, they quote sources close to the family saying some pretty harsh things. Care to comment?" "I don't comment on tabloid lies," Brad replied, his voice steady but with obvious tension. "My relationship with my children is private. It's not entertainment." The audience was dead quiet now, sensing the growing tension between the two men. Colbert, known for his sharp wit and sometimes provocative interview style, seemed determined to push forward with this line of questioning. "Fair enough," Colbert said, putting the magazine down. "But when you're in the public eye, don't you think people have a right to know about—" "No," Brad interrupted firmly. "They don't. Nobody has a right to know about my kids or how I parent them. That's not part of the deal, Stephen." Colbert raised his eyebrows and turned to the audience with a theatrical shrug. "Seems like we've hit a nerve, folks." Some awkward laughter rippled through the crowd, but most people remained uncomfortably silent. Brad took a deep breath, clearly trying to stay calm. "Look, I came here to talk about my film. If you want to discuss the months of work that went into it, the amazing cast and crew, I'm all for it. But my family is off limits. Always has been. Always will be." Instead of backing off, Colbert reached under his desk again and pulled out a small trophy. The audience could see it was a cheap gag prop with the words, "Worst Dad Award," crudely painted on it. The studio audience gasped. "We had this made up before you came on," Colbert said, attempting to play it off as a joke. "It was supposed to be funny. You know, you could laugh it off and show everyone you're a good sport." Brad's face darkened. "You think making fun of someone's relationship with their kids is funny?" He wasn't shouting, but his voice had taken on a dangerous, quiet quality that made it clear he was furious. "Would you like it if someone did that to you about your children, Stephen?" Colbert seemed to realize he had miscalculated badly, but rather than apologizing, he tried to recover with humor. "Come on, Brad. It's just a joke. Everyone knows you're not really—" "A joke at my expense and my children's expense," Brad cut in. "You know, I've always respected you as an interviewer. I thought you were better than this tabloid garbage." The tension in the studio was now so thick it could be cut with a knife. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances. Producers were frantically talking into their headsets backstage. The audience was completely silent, witnessing what was quickly becoming one of the most uncomfortable moments in late-night television history. Colbert attempted to pivot. "Let's take a step back. Tell us about what attracted you to this role in the first place." But Brad wasn't ready to move on. "No, let's not take a step back. Let's talk about why you thought it was okay to ambush me with this trash." He pointed at the fake tabloid. "Did you run out of actual interesting questions to ask? Or did your producers decide you needed a viral moment to boost your ratings?" The audience oohed at this direct challenge. Colbert's face flushed red. "That's not fair, Brad. We're just trying to have a conversation that our viewers are interested in." "At what cost?" Brad fired back. "At the cost of my kids seeing this garbage online tomorrow? They deal with enough without their dad being ambushed on national television." Colbert was now visibly uncomfortable, realizing the situation was spiraling out of his control. The planned gotcha moment was backfiring spectacularly, with audience sympathy clearly swinging toward Brad. "All right, let's take a break," Colbert said, turning to the camera. "When we come back, more with Brad Pitt." But as the show cut to commercial, Brad was already removing his microphone. "We're done here," he said, standing up. The studio audience could see him talking firmly to Colbert, though the microphones were off. The host appeared to be trying to convince him to stay, but Brad shook his head decisively. Security personnel approached from the sides of the stage, uncertain if they should intervene. Backstage, producers were panicking, wondering what they would do for the remaining segment if their star guest walked off. As the commercial break neared its end, tensions reached a breaking point. Brad stood tall, looking down at Colbert, who remained seated behind his desk. What would happen when the cameras started rolling again? Would Brad return to his seat, or was this interview over? The future of one of late night's biggest shows hung in the balance as the director counted down to their return from the break. 5, 4, 3. The stage manager counted down with fingers, mouthing the final 2, 1 silently before pointing at Colbert. The on-air light flashed red. Colbert turned to the camera with a strained smile. "Welcome back to The Late Show. We're here with Brad Pitt, discussing his new film and, a few other topics." The camera panned wide to reveal Brad still standing, arms crossed. The audience murmured nervously, "Brad, why don't you have a seat so we can continue our chat?" Colbert gestured to the empty chair, trying to sound casual despite the obvious tension. Brad shook his head. "I think I've been pretty clear about where I stand, Stephen." His voice was calm but firm. "I came here in good faith to talk about a film that hundreds of people worked very hard on. Instead, you ambushed me with fake tabloid stories to get a reaction." The audience was dead silent. This wasn't the scripted banter they were used to seeing. Colbert attempted to salvage the situation. "Look, Brad, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. The prop was meant to be ridiculous, something we could both laugh at because everyone knows you're a dedicated father." "That's exactly my point," Brad cut in. "My role as a father isn't something for you to use as entertainment. It's not a joke or a prop or a way to boost your ratings." Someone in the audience shouted, "Tell him, Brad," and scattered applause followed. Colbert's face flushed. This was rapidly becoming a public relations disaster. He looked off stage desperately, where producers were making frantic move-on gestures. "You know what? Let's just focus on the film," Colbert said, shuffling his note cards. "In this new project, your character faces some moral challenges that—" "No," Brad interrupted again. "We're not just going to pretend this didn't happen. You don't get to disrespect my family and then move on when it doesn't work out the way you planned." The audience erupted in applause, clearly siding with Brad. Colbert looked genuinely shocked at losing control of his own show. "I've been doing press for over 30 years," Brad continued, his voice rising with emotion. "I've sat on hundreds of these couches and answered thousands of questions. I've always been fair with the media, even when they haven't been fair with me. But this?" He picked up the fake trophy and held it up for the camera. "This crosses a line." Colbert tried to regain his footing. "Brad, we're entertainment. Sometimes that means pushing boundaries. My children are not your entertainment." Brad's voice boomed across the studio, causing several audience members to gasp. "They're real people who didn't ask to be born into the spotlight. They deserve basic respect and dignity." A production assistant hurried onto the stage and whispered something in Colbert's ear. He nodded and then turned back to Brad. "We're going to take another quick break," Colbert announced to the camera, his voice tight. "No more breaks," Brad said. "I'm done." He turned to leave the stage. Colbert stood up, panic evident in his face. "Brad, please, let's talk about this off camera." Brad stopped and turned back. The microphones were still hot, capturing every word for the audience at home. "You know what bothers me the most, Stephen? You're smarter than this. Your show is better than this. I've watched you for years, and you usually have real conversations with your guests. You ask thoughtful questions. What happened tonight?" Colbert seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The audience watched in stunned silence, as the polished TV host struggled to respond. "Ratings," Brad answered his own question. "Clicks, views, the almighty viral moment. That's what this was about, right? Getting me to react so clips of this interview would spread online." Some audience members nodded in agreement. "Well, congratulations," Brad continued, gesturing around the studio. "You'll definitely get your viral moment, but at what cost? Is this really what your show stands for now?" The tension in the room was unbearable. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to keep filming or cut away. Producers stood frozen in the wings, watching the situation unravel in real time. Colbert finally found his voice. "You're right," he admitted, surprising everyone. "This was a mistake. The prop, the tabloid questions. It wasn't fair to you. I apologize." A murmur went through the audience. Was this genuine remorse or damage control? Brad studied Colbert's face, searching for sincerity. "I appreciate that, but I think the damage is done for tonight." "Please," Colbert said, "let's reset. We can talk about whatever you want. Just the film, your charity work, anything." For a moment it seemed like Brad might consider it. The audience held their collective breath. Then Brad glanced at the fake trophy still sitting on Colbert's desk. "Not tonight," he said quietly. "I think we both need some time to cool off." Colbert nodded, resignation on his face. "I understand." Brad turned to the audience. "I'm sorry, folks. I was looking forward to this conversation too. But some things are more important than promoting a movie." The audience applauded, many people standing in support. Brad gave a small wave and headed toward the exit. As he reached the edge of the stage, a production assistant approached him with his suit jacket. Brad thanked them and continued walking. Colbert stood alone at his desk, facing a crisis unlike any in his career. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every excruciating second of dead air. He looked directly into the lens, knowing millions of viewers were watching this train wreck in real time. "We'll be right back," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. As the show cut to commercial again, chaos erupted backstage. Producers huddled in emergency discussion. Publicists were already on phones with damage control teams, and social media was exploding with clips of the confrontation. Brad made his way through the backstage area, staff members awkwardly avoiding eye contact as he passed. His own publicist rushed to his side, phone already pressed to her ear. "Brad, we need to get ahead of this," she said urgently. "Make a statement. Something to—" "No statements," Brad replied firmly. "What happened out there spoke for itself." As he approached the exit, 2 security guards stepped forward, apparently sent to escort him from the building. Brad raised an eyebrow. Was he being treated as a threat now? The mood backstage grew even more tense as everyone watched to see what would happen next. "Mr. Pitt," one of the guards said, stepping closer, "we've been asked to make sure you get to your car safely. There are a lot of paparazzi gathering outside already." Brad relaxed slightly, realizing they weren't there to remove him forcibly but to protect him. "Thanks, but I've been dealing with paparazzi my whole career. I'll be fine." The head of security joined them, looking apologetic. "Sir, word of what happened has already spread. There's a crowd forming outside. For everyone's safety, we'd like to take you through our private exit." Brad's publicist nodded emphatically. "He's right, Brad. Let's avoid making this an even bigger circus." Before Brad could respond, a commotion erupted from the direction of the stage. Stephen Colbert was hurrying toward them, having left the show during the commercial break. His tie was loosened, and he looked genuinely distressed. "Brad, wait!" Colbert called out, waving off a producer who tried to stop him. "Please just give me 1 minute." The security guards looked to Brad for guidance. He hesitated, then nodded. 1 minute. Colbert approached, keeping a respectful distance. "I wanted to apologize again, properly. Not for the cameras or the audience, just man to man." He ran a hand through his hair nervously. "That was completely out of line. All of it. The tabloid stuff, the trophy. It wasn't even my idea, but I went along with it, and that's on me." Brad studied him carefully. "Why did you do it? You've never struck me as that kind of host before." Colbert sighed deeply. "Pressure. Ratings. The network's been pushing for more viral moments, but that's not an excuse. I should have pushed back harder." A heavy silence fell between them. Staff members pretended to be busy while straining to hear every word. "Look," Brad finally said, "I get it. This business can make you do things you're not proud of. But my kids—" He paused, emotion catching in his throat. "They see this stuff. They hear about it at school. It affects them." Colbert nodded solemnly. "I have kids, too. I should have known better. What can I do to make this right?" Brad thought for a moment. "Be better than this. You have a platform. Use it responsibly." "I will," Colbert promised. "And I'd like to make a public apology on tomorrow's show if that's okay with you." Brad nodded slowly. "That would be a start." The executive producer appeared, looking frazzled. "Stephen, we need you back on set. We've got 4 minutes until we're live again." "What are you going to do?" Brad asked. "You've still got half a show to fill." Colbert grimaced. "I honestly don't know, but I'll figure it out." Brad looked around at the chaos he was leaving behind. The panicked staff, the disrupted show, the gathering media storm outside. He'd made his point, stood his ground. Maybe that was enough. "What if I went back out there with you?" Brad suggested, surprising everyone, including himself. Colbert's eyes widened. "Are you serious, after what just happened?" "On one condition," Brad said firmly. "We talk about this, not just move past it like it didn't happen. We have a real conversation about media ethics, about respecting people's private lives, about the impact these viral moments have on real people." Colbert looked stunned but nodded quickly. "Absolutely. Whatever you want to discuss." Brad's publicist grabbed his arm. "Brad, are you sure about this? We haven't prepared for that kind of conversation." "That's exactly why it needs to happen," Brad replied. "Real, unscripted, honest." The executive producer was already on her headset, alerting the control room. "Change of plans. Brad's coming back. We need to adjust the segment." As word spread, a buzz of excitement swept through the staff. Camera operators repositioned, Lighting technicians made quick adjustments, and the audience coordinator rushed to brief the crowd on the unexpected turn of events. Brad and Colbert walked back toward the stage together. An unlikely truce formed in the midst of what had nearly been a career-defining disaster for both of them. "Thank you for giving me another chance," Colbert said quietly. "It's not just for you," Brad replied. "Maybe something good can come from this mess." As they reached the stage entrance, Colbert extended his hand. Brad took it, and they shared a firm handshake. Not for the cameras, but as a genuine agreement between two men who had found unexpected common ground. The stage manager counted them down again, and this time both men walked onto the set together. The audience erupted in shocked applause, clearly not expecting to see Brad return. They took their seats, and Colbert faced the camera. "Welcome back to The Late Show. As you saw earlier, Brad Pitt and I had what you might call a disagreement." A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. "But instead of letting that be the end of the story, we've decided to have a real conversation about why it happened and what we can all learn from it." Brad leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. "What you're seeing right now wasn't planned or rehearsed. This is us trying to turn a bad moment into something meaningful." What followed was unlike anything ever seen on late-night television. For the next 15 minutes, Brad and Colbert had a raw, honest discussion about celebrity culture, media ethics, and the human cost of entertainment. They disagreed at points, agreed at others, but maintained a mutual respect throughout. "My children didn't choose this life," Brad explained. "When people use them as punchlines or leverage them for ratings, it affects real kids with real feelings." Colbert nodded. "I've spent my career hiding behind characters and comedy. Sometimes that makes it too easy to forget there are real people on the receiving end of these jokes." The audience listened in rapt attention, witnessing something authentic in a medium often criticized for its artifice. As their time drew to a close, Colbert addressed the audience. "I want to thank Brad for his courage tonight. It would have been easier to walk away, and no one would have blamed him. Instead, he chose to come back and turn this into a teaching moment. For me, for our show, and hopefully for anyone watching." Brad smiled. "Sometimes the hardest conversations are the most important ones." The show ended with a standing ovation, not just for the celebrity guest, but for the rare moment of genuine humanity in an industry often lacking it. Outside the studio, the waiting paparazzi captured images of Brad leaving, not being escorted out in anger as they'd hoped, but walking side by side with Colbert, both men looking somber but resolved. By morning, the story had spread worldwide, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of salacious headlines about a celebrity meltdown, the narrative focused on an unexpected moment of authenticity that had resonated with viewers tired of manufactured drama. In the weeks that followed, The Late Show saw its highest ratings in years, not because of a viral celebrity confrontation, but because audiences were hungry for the kind of honest conversation they had witnessed that night. As for Brad, he received thousands of messages from parents and children alike, thanking him for standing up for family privacy in such a public way. 6 months later, Brad returned to The Late Show, this time to a warm welcome. Colbert had kept his promise, changing the show's approach to celebrity interviews and using his platform more responsibly. "Last time you were here, you taught me an important lesson," Colbert said during their reunion. Brad smiled. "Sometimes the best moments in life aren't the ones we plan for, but the ones where we're forced to show who we really are." In an industry built on carefully crafted images and scripted moments, their unexpected confrontation had become something rare and valuable, a glimpse of truth.